Welcome to the Edifice Complex, the property design and development podcast. Let your hosts Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean keep you up with who is innovating and doing great work, perspective on the adjacent possible, and challenges to the status quo.
Welcome to the Edifice Complex. I'm Robert Bean, your co-host and unofficial mediator, here with my colleague, official agitator. That's why I'm always giggling, because Adam's always got a way to shake things up. Friend and Yoda, most everything to do with buildings, Mr. Adam Muggleton. Say hello, Sir Yoda.
Hello there. Also, angry old man. Should be added to that moniker.
Few of us hold that title, by the way. Hey, listen, our guest today, we met like 10 years ago, and he subjected himself to one of my boot camps and survived. And but before he even started, into this world that he's in now, he earned his Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics and Astronautics, got his Master's in Aerospace Engineering, and then went on to get his PhD in Biomedical Engineering. He's a fellow with the University Space Research Association, where he investigated the effects of spaceflight on the immune system. That's pretty cool. Was with the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and I guess you were teaching and also examining the effects of shear stress on ion transport and electrophysiology of kidney cells. Another cool story. Today, he's the principal of Transduction Technologies, which does a whole bunch of building science stuff, from energy modeling, computational fluid dynamics, testing, and just, all the really cool, nerdy stuff that we like to talk about on the show. So welcome, Mr. David Holtzclaw.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. That's I hope I can live up to that introduction.
Well, you do, David. And, like a lot of our guests, and we're so lucky, Adam, we get some really awesome people on the show to share their story. And the listeners, a big part of our listeners are students. They're kids that are in university or colleges, not kids, these are young adults, or parents from the sort of the STEM world that are trying to provide direction for their offspring in the world. And we want to bring that audience sort of your wisdom. So why don't you tell us how you got into this business?
Well, I kind of fell off the horse in this business backwards throughout the years. I grew up in kind of rural Kentucky. I wanted to be point guard for LA Lakers, like most kids in the U.S. So that was my interest. I had a little bit of skill for math and science, so I kind of got into engineering. And once I realized I couldn't be an NBA player, I wanted to be an astronaut. That was kind of the next cool thing, which again, a lot of people of my generation wanted to do. So studied aerospace engineering, went to a couple of good schools, fortunately, and worked as an aerospace engineer. Kind of did that for a while. Found out that to be an astronaut, you needed advanced degrees. So I was like, oh, well, I guess I better do that. So went back to school, got a couple of degrees, kind of interested in biomedical engineering. So the connection between aerospace and biomedical is not much, other than I thought it was cool. And at the time, NASA was doing a lot of space research on physiology. They were interested in, we want to send somebody to Mars, and that's going to be a 2-year round trip flight. How's the body going to respond in weightlessness for that time? They were discovering with astronauts going out for even short periods of time, like a week, that they were losing bone mass and bone density. And this it never really became a problem for astronauts, became a concern. Okay, if they lose, and this was a small amount, but a couple percentages of bone mass in a week, what's going to happen in 2 years? Then also, if you're in like that far out in space, you get exposed to a lot of space radiation. So are these astronauts going to come back with cancer? That was kind of a question hanging over people's heads. So I thought the biomedical reach would get me would be kind of like a niche I could get into NASA with. That was the plan when I was doing my graduate work at the University of Cincinnati. And so they had a decent biomedical engineering program at that time, and probably still do today. I don't really know. So did that, did a postdoc as here in the US, you gotta be, after being 5 years of being somebody's gopher and slave, go somewhere else and you be 3 years somebody's gopher and slave for little to no money. That's kind of one of our many broken systems here in the US. So I did that and learned a lot more, got kind of into the molecular side. And part of doing that in the molecular side was looking at, so you have a cell, it's got ion channels, the teeny tiny nanometer channels where ions go in and out and control its cell function. And we were figuring out that they respond to shear stresses, and there's a specific family of channels that respond to shear stresses. So as the cell goes through the bloodstream and it goes through different shaped pipes or vessels, it has different shear effects, and that tells the cell to open channel A or close channel B or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So coming from an engineering and having at least a little bit of knowledge of shear stresses and strain effects, I kind of started studying that, mostly in the lab, not in people, but in the lab, and seeing how different shear effects open and closes different channels, which actually played a role in some of the bone density loss that they were seeing in short-term space, low altitude space experiences. So did that, publishing papers, became a serious geek. Then after that, I actually got a job at NASA. It was kind of another fellowship where we did that. And 6 months before we went, I think one of the space shuttles destroyed. And very poor timing. And the astronaut program pretty much came to a halt. So they stopped having classes. So basically each year, every 2 years, they had a class of about 20 people or so that went into it, kind of trained for 2 years, and they became in the astronaut pool, which at that time was around 100 people. So NASA went through kind of a hard time after that. We were in a recession. The U.S. government's, the U.S. economy was in a recession. Funding went down. So everything kind of just froze. So it's about a time where I became eligible or competitive for slots. The program just kind of came to a halt. So one of the lessons in life is sometimes you just got bad luck and you just got to roll the dice and move forward. So the shame is I kind of came disillusioned with NASA. It was a poorly run organization at the time. Funding was way down. You saw some of the government inefficiencies and action up close and front. You saw how a poor contractor pool can really hurt morale and not get much done. It was very disappointing. So I did my fellowship, and at the end of the fellowship, I was kind of ready to leave. And I didn't really know what to do. And my wife at the time, we got married throughout in grad school, and she's from Nebraska, and she kind of always wanted to move back to Nebraska. So lo and behold, we moved back to Nebraska, where there is zero biomedical engineering role and zero aerospace engineering role. So all of my training and resume was basically a big goose egg coming to Nebraska, where all my industry experiences didn't exist. So after that, I became an academic. I went to academia, tried to chase some money, taught some classes. I really enjoyed teaching, really enjoyed interacting with students. Had a hard time getting funding. And in the US, if you don't, get your funding, you don't have a job very quickly. And I was in a specialized niche that didn't really exist here. There was zero interest from my chairs and bosses to, get into that. So that was kind of another dead end. So I flamed out of academia, ended up being a stay-at-home dad. We had 3 kids at the time, all under 4 or 5, and was a stay-at-home dad for about 2 years. Really enjoyed that. actually much harder than I ever appreciated. So hats off to all the stay-at-home
Totally.
parents out there.
Yep.
That's a lot of work. And then kind of got bored with that. Kids started to get a little older, got into school, didn't, need me full time 24/7. So started to look for work again, and was always a bit of a tree hugger, very involved environmentally or concerned about it. So started trying to get into sustainability. It rolled, kind of led me into energy efficiency, led me into mechanical systems, which I knew a little bit of something about. So I got licensed as a mechanical engineer. First, so kind of switch over from aerospace and biomedical to mechanical engineer. And then I heard this guy, Robert Bean, talking. And very quickly drunk his Kool-Aid until he was inspired and agreed with 99% of things he was saying about comfort's the number one issue. And if you get comfort, you get energy efficiency and you get sustainability, and how that thing flowed, and was kind of shocked how the rest of the industry didn't figure this out. So followed up with that Bean guy, sent him some emails. He was very helpful, very encouraging, did a great, offered all his wisdoms and knowledge and mentoring, and kind of led it to a career like that. So thank you to Robert for being such a good mentor at that time. And around here, there's a ton of mechanical engineering fields, companies. So on the commercial side, MEP design very quickly became a commodity. So how do I distinguish myself was on the enclosure side is kind of how I fell into that. And that's how I kind of fell into enclosure commissioning, because A, nobody around here was doing it. B, the air leakage thing and boiler testing is something I enjoyed and was interested in, from, again, a little bit from that aerospace background where I had a decent knowledge of fluid dynamics and airflow. Saw a niche that I thought I could fill. So kind of went out that way. We tried to push compositional fluid dynamics, which I did for a couple of years as an aerospace engineer. Found very little market for that, but that still kind of got my name out there, and we ended up doing a lot of building testing on the commissioning side, which also led to a lot of your simulation work. Again, so your hydrothermal modeling, your thermal break modeling, thermal barrier, thermal bridges, stuff like that. A lot of the geeky stuff architects firms have no desire to do.
Right.
So we kind of became the consultants to the consultants and told architects where to put their vapor barrier. So that led to, that's kind of how we make our money, in honesty. So we did a lot of building science work, read a lot of the building science work, though all those people out there, a lot of Canadians who are far ahead of us and those type of that information. So just kind of learned from them and tried to build better buildings.
Yeah. That's a great story. There's so many lessons in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I'm trying to put myself in your shoes where you're following your passion, and you're pursuing it like a hound dog and you're doing all the right things, but then circumstances kind of get in the way and things that you're not even in control of.
So actually for young graduates here, even people sort of in university, there's a takeaway, right? You can do all the right things. David did all the easy stuff, engineering, master's engineering, PhD in biomedicine. Kill me now, by the way. Kill me now, right? But still, and wanted to be an astronaut and possibly could have been, and yet it didn't happen. So look, this is something I'm speaking to old guys, speaking to young people here. You can do all the right things. It still doesn't go your way. There's no right it's going to go your way. Timing and right place, right time are a huge factor in your career. And to be successful, you have to pivot, right?
Yeah.
Right?
You got to be willing to pivot on a dime. And even today, it's even more pivoting. Either that or you keep chasing your dream of being point guard for the LA Lakers.
Either that, you become a person, right? The point is, my old boss used to say, you don't get what you deserve, you just get what's coming at you, right? No one wakes up and says, you know what, Mum, I want to be a commissioning enclosure specialist. Said nobody ever.
Correct. Yeah. I had a buddy of mine in college who graduated in the same class as me from undergrad, and so this was early '90s, and the U.S. was in recession in the '90s. He loved cars. Went to did internships for GM. Got a job out of college, undergrad. Went to GM. Was working for 2 weeks. And this whole division got wiped out. They fired everybody. So like 80 engineers and people, and he was like 2 weeks in the job. So it wasn't like anything he did.
Yeah.
It was just like, we gotta make the stock markets go up. We gotta make people happy. So we cut costs and boom, that whole division was gone in like a board meeting decision in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And his whole dream just got wiped down the can to make that earnings call. So, and he ended up back. He's had a wonderful career in the auto industry, but took his lumps and had to make changes, and then kind of got back in.
Yeah, I mean, Winston Churchill used to say, success is about picking yourself up every time you get punched in the face and moving on with enthusiasm.
Exactly.
I'm misquoting, but that's pretty much what you're saying. Right?
Yeah, so that's what you got to do.
It is. I was watching a program on special forces, and it was physical training assessments, right? The PTAs and the sergeant there, made the point that we're looking for individuals that can take the physical, but we're more interested in the psychological aspects of how they pick themselves up and keep going.
Yeah.
And the recruits that came through, or the volunteers that came through, some of them just didn't have what it took physically. They just weren't prepared for the tryouts. But psychologically, there was no off button, no quit. There wasn't a quit element. And those guys always got the nod. Look, buddy, we're going to send you through to the next round.
Yeah.
But you got to physically prepare yourself. Psychologically, you got what it takes.
Yeah.
And so it was just finding congruency of the body and the mind. But, as it relates to this discussion, it's like, you're going to get knocked down. There's going to be shit happening. You're not going to like it. Like David, like you went home and you became a stay-at-home dad. And like that, even that whole process for you must have been like an interesting dialogue inside your head. Like there's all the joy of being a dad, and not everybody gets to be a stay-at-home dad, but you were also an accomplished, like your brain, was already on a path. You were taking your body on a journey, and it was a diversion, but that must have been both really rewarding for you, but also at the same time in the back of your mind going like, what am I going to do next?
Yeah. I was scared. First of all, I felt like a failure because I technically was, I slammed out as a research professor and academic. My, other careers had pretty much died off, or, wasn't going to happen. So, just money wise, that was the best option because again, we have super crazy daycare costs. So that was actually, the most financially possible. But yeah, I felt like a failure. Society treating me like a failure. Very much so. So a lot of the stay-home dads out there get kind of looked down on their nose as you're by everybody. So that was definitely, this was going back 10, 15. My kids are high school and college now, but at the time, that's kind of people looked at you as failures, and I felt like that. So, but that again, you just kind of have to roll with it. Reset your goals and get going. I did find a lot of joy with being with my kids all the time, and I have a great relationship with my children now as they are in college and I guess senior in college now, about ready to graduate and go out to the world. And I have good relationships with all of them, and I've spent a lot of time with them, made them a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But that will pay off for the rest of our life. Hopefully, at least that will pay off for the rest of our lives. Whereas, I know a lot of folks my age, men and women, that just don't have those relationships with their children.
Yep.
They put their careers first. And so everything worked out at the end, but I was sweating bullets in the process.
Look, kids spell love Time, time, right? That's pretty
you're
good
correct.
too.
Yeah.
There's a takeaway here, right? So you got an engineering degree. Let's face it, you can't fake that, right? A master's degree and a PhD, right? And yet you failed twice in your career, right?
3 or 4 times, but yeah.
Yeah, that's that's the world we live in. Anyone that tells you money is not a measure of success, you tell them to. Right? Because you still got to pay your bills, pay the mortgage, put the kids through high school and college, right?
Yeah.
This matters, right? So it does. But I think the message here is you can't divorce your academic route from your ability, from the return on investment for that to make you money so you can live and provide, right? Some
Correct, yeah.
people is that, follow your dream. Everyone who says that is a rich asshole, right? Follow what you have to do. Anyway, sorry. Question I want to get onto. I'm ranting again.
It's like Branson.
Right. So what I want to get onto is, so you wind up through many zigzags. You're like what I would call a building closure specialist, engineer, whatever label we're putting on that, right? So for me, I am sort of fascinated and horrified by building enclosures or facades, as we call them, where I come from, right? Where a building, I'm a big, one of the things I studied at university was systems thinking. And once you start seeing systems, you can't stop seeing them everywhere, right?
Yeah, totally.
So a building is a system of systems. And in my opinion, the facade, the envelope is the most important system. Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, like dictates comfort, dictates energy consumption, environmental footprint, OPEX, CAPEX, right? It is like hands down the most significant thing out there, right? Cost. Yet everyone like passes it around like it's a radioactive hot potato. You know what I mean? No one really jumps on it. So what's your sort of opinion of the state of play of facade or enclosure engineering right now?
It's a mess, to be blunt, right? It is. So what has happened is, and I'm speaking for the U.S. I can't really speak for anywhere else. I don't have a lot of experience outside the U.S.
Right.
It has become a hot potato that people have passed around. And also because a significant cost for the owner. So as a result of that, and through a lot of business and cultural changes in the building industry, architects know least about it, have studied the least, and so they have pushed off that responsibility mostly to the contractors and the manufacturers.
Yeah.
So glazings, curtain walls, and now our Edifice and all of our specialized facades that give an appearance, an aesthetics that either the architect wants or the owner wants. It's a either pre-designed system or a system that the architect knows very little about. So they just pass that responsibility to the next person, which is either contractor or more often usually the manufacturer and the manufacturer's rep. I discovered how important the manufacturer's rep is in this industry, because by God, they're doing all the design work. They're doing all the detailing. That is a both an unsung hero and someone who should be shot and feathered, because the quality of that person really determines how well that enclosure goes. And as you said, Adam, that drives everything else. It drives sustainability, it drives energy consumption, it drives comfort, it drives moisture, it drives indoor environmental quality. So that can make the facilities managers, the HVAC engineer, everybody else's job really easy or really, really hard.
Yep.
So how well they do that, and then the contractors is number 2, how well that gets built and installed. And people that are often viewed with the least importance on the priority poll of a project, right? So they're really important. Yeah, I agree with anything you say, Adam. It's hugely important. There are improvements. We are slowly, regrettably, people are learning building science. people are learning about the floor control layers and how to include them. And so that is getting better. Our materials really, who deserves the most credits out there in the building industry is all these PhD scientists locked away in a lab for Prochico or GS or Dow that are doing amazing things.
Yeah.
We got fluid applied flashings that you can put on in -20 and 105.
Yeah, the material
Right.
sciences.
The material science is just phenomenal what they're coming up with. And that is hiding a lot of poor quality installations and the poor quality designs by both the architects and the manufacturers were at. So
design and application then is where the action really needs to be, right?
Correct. Yeah. Design is key. And then application, how do we install these wonderful products that the material sciences are creating in an underground lab somewhere? And then how do we properly employ it? And how do we use these wonderful products to make the other buildings? So
sidebar here for any of the outdoors people, get yourself a roll of 3M weather barrier tape. It makes the best repair tape for your boots, your tents, your coats, whatever. And you can thank 3M for that. Right. Yeah. But this stuff is amazing. Like the temperatures, the moisture, all of the sunlight, although some of these tapes, but they're still good for a year of UV constant exposure, right? Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing, and you got a material, it's vapor open on one side and vapor closed on the other. Just think about how you design and create that. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do you weave that fabric on a molecular label? I mean, that's really outstanding science and material science that they're doing.
Yeah.
So the materials are saving our butts, quite honestly.
Yeah,
and
totally.
The materials are hiding a lot of flaws that the industry still has yet to fix. So as a commissioning agents, my job is to try to fix all those flaws and don't count on the material to save your butts. And then on the design side, get the architect to realize to put a little bit of time in the facade, or if nothing else, hire a consultant to do that work for them.
Yeah. I really think in school, like in the engineering classes, there should be at least a class on SEM imaging of building materials. So SEM is, and I'm going to probably get this wrong, I'll try not to, scanned electron microscopy, it is?
Yes.
SEM images. Anyways, they take these microscopic photographs of materials. And so like for Gore-Tex, for example, you can see the multiple levels in Gore-Tex and you can understand why it will reject the larger vapor molecules, but allow vapor to escape from the inside. So keeps the water out, but lets the vapor go, keeps the water up, but lets the vapor through from your body into the outdoors. If you look at it like aluminum, for example, if you look at a scanned SEM image of aluminum foil, it looks like, a farmer's fields from space, right?
Yeah.
But you can then, when you see how smooth and polished it is, you can then understand why it's vapor closed, right? Or glass or insulation. It's really cool to be able to see that stuff at a really microscopic level.
I've never understood how the building industry, which we have millions and millions of buildings across the globe, right? Huge driver of our economy and employment, right? Yet they're so far behind in a lot of these technology versus there. So take the aerospace world, where I kind of grew up in, quote unquote. You want to build a new building in the US, it's the ICC code. It's a stock of about 17 books. That's about 1.5 feet tall. You want to put a new car out in the world or a new airplane, I can sell 100-foot by 100-foot room of regulation, rules, design parameters, best practices. If you have an airplane, it's getting x-rayed, it's getting scanned, it's getting all this high-end technology that exists. It's been around ultrasound, infrared thermography. Same thing in the medical industry. You walk into any outdoor, outpatient clinic, they got $500,000 $1 million of equipment, from x-rays to scanners, all that every patient goes through, right? So you go into a building, none of that happened. And this is the one thing that people spend 90% of their time in, right?
Yep.
So just basic off-the-shelf technology that's been proven by other industries just doesn't happen. And it's not that expensive. It's not that much more. It's just incorporating some of the regulations, for lack of a better word, and some of the best practices that are out there that aren't being done. And that's why, we crap on airplanes, but every new airplane that goes out there, it's in service 40 years, 30, 40 years. And goes all kinds of flights through all kinds of weather. And, they rarely break down. And when they do, they're the front page news everywhere in the country. So there's a lot of heat on the manufacturers to make sure that it stays good. Now, think what happens if every building that, had occupant discomforts or mold, what happens if that building was on the front page of the New York Times every time that happened? How would the industry change? Right?
Yeah.
So you've hit on one of my big frustrations. We got all this amazing technology with none of it applied to buildings.
Exactly. We're not, yeah.
So, I think you've hit it on the head. It's a lack of consequences, right? If an airplane manufacturer screws up, see Boeing, bad things happen, right?
Exactly. Everybody knows. Yeah.
So, I personally am coming to the conclusion it's down to how we procure buildings, not how we design them. It's how we procure them. Like as an ex-property developer, one of my sins in life, right? Risk, it's a game of risk. So a property developer, I found out as I became one, like commercial properties, we're not building buildings, we're building financial assets, right? Exactly. So my game is to to either pass on risk, insure against risk, or manage risk, right? Ideally, I'm passing that risk on. And then you get to design and build contracts when you play that game, right? The conceit is I've passed that, I've transferred that risk. Oh, you haven't, because that thing just comes back at you in whatever form it comes, right? So then it becomes about how good you write those requirements documents. But there's no consequences, right? Exactly, you get that building back, you got to occupy it, money, everything. And then sometimes you go to court, not very often. So there's no extreme punch in the face that stops you doing a bad job on the next one.
Exactly. We have, and so the risk management is how I sell it, putting my small business hat on. Risk management is how I sell our services, both to architects as well as building owners. And from a commissioning perspective, we help you manage risk and as well as contractors too. We get hired a lot of times by general contractors who
because that risk has been transferred to them, right?
Exactly.
I have a divisional director who runs a facades division who sort of reports to me. And we have an elevator pitch for every divisional director in our firm, right? And the elevator pitch for the facade engineering department, where commissioning resides as well, is 76% of all construction litigation in the US is based on the enclosure.
Right. Yeah.
Moisture down.
Mostly.
Yep.
Moisture.
So sentence one, problem. Sentence two, you can pay me to fix it later or fix it early. You'll move. As Jack Nicholson, you leave me on that wall.
And if you pay me early, it's about a third of the cost to pay you later.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
We had, remember on our 100th episode, we had Joe Stiebrick on, and that's what his comment was, is that the courts are driving in the improvements in our industry.
Yeah.
Because we're not talking a couple grand here. We're talking millions and millions of dollars in legal fees, never mind the repair of the big buildings. And then there's the consequences, Look at what happened in England, right? Was it the Grenfell building?
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, right? Not only the envelope has a lot of jobs, right? Style, design, enclosure, comfort, also life safety, right? It's a protection layer. And in the UK, there is been some horrific consequences from bad facade design. 72 people died at Grenfell.
But has that changed in the UK, Adam? Has rules changed? Is there being enforced more?
So
that's getting it above the fold of the New York Times. That's when change happens.
So 70 people died. That's front page news, right? But behind that, there is a documentary on Netflix I encourage everyone to watch. It made me so angry I wanted to throttle someone at the end of it. So the cost saving for putting the cheap panels on the cladding was £5,000, 7,000 US dollars. The whole building
What?
resulted in a death of 72. Everything you need to say about the construction industry is in that stat, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But consequently, so when things happen in the UK, the health and safety legislation is quite strict there. You know, if you've been proven to be the cause of Legionnaires' disease, you're going to jail if you're the FM manager. They will put you in jail. And they're so angry they can't put someone in jail right now. They're redoing everything. There's a thing called the Building Safety Act, which is going through, and they're doing a thing called the Golden Thread, where they're making it so that you have to assign a name of a person to every life safety decision going forward. And this is all in process. The result is it's not fast, and the whole market is all like stuck at the moment till all this new legislation comes out. But they are really going hardcore. Now, the current consequence of that is there's still thousands of buildings with the wrong panels on, and there's no clear guidance about how to go forward. So the whole market's in a bit of a freeze at the moment.
Wow.
But it's
Well,
gross, man. I'll tell you.
Wow.
I hate to say it, but we almost need that failure here.
Yeah.
That's public failure in the U.S. That probably wouldn't change in the U.S. because we're so against regulations and rules. But you almost need that to happen. You know, that's the Boeing example. Everybody knows about it, and there's consequences. Yeah.
I mean, actually, to the credit of US, the firm who sold the panels was a US firm, and they sold panels into the UK that are actually illegal in the US. So you do not have in the US all these panels because they're basically plastic panels. They're basically petroleum bombs, right? And those things are not legal in the US. So you do not have that problem. But in the US, like the UK, fire life safety and building code changes when there's a big event like a death, like that fire in the 90s in Vegas that reset a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is the
Chicago fire.
Yeah. Grenfell is the equivalent of that, right? It will change things horribly because you can't ignore people dying.
Yeah.
The cost is people dying, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And it's not that we didn't know about, it's not like we didn't know about the potential for these failures.
Yeah.
We all know they exist. And it's like the vocal minority just doesn't get listened to. Everybody else, it's just the status quo, business as usual, bill it out, collect the money, put the profits in your shares, and continue on tomorrow and do the same shit again and again and again. In the meantime, there's just a small group of people, the scientists, saying this is wrong. It has to change. No one listens.
Remember, when you insure against risk, you're actually playing a probability game, the same way blackjack is a probability game, right? And the probability of 72 people dying with that is like nothing.
Yeah.
Yet, sometimes it happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough whole world, I think, kids. We should take away from this. All right, let's bring it back up.
How did we get on exactly?
Angry old man, right?
But again, like, this is not a game for amateurs.
No.
And so I think, like, one of the things why we wanted to bring you on, Dave, is because you got a great story about perseverance, determination, and it's just awesome, and what you've done with your own, abilities, your academic abilities, and to take that and turn it into the business that you have. I mean, that's a big story right there. But in that world, it's not a game for amateurs. You have to be paying attention to the details, and you have to stand up for those things that you believe are right, and you have to draw attention to the things that are wrong, and you have to, you can't compromise on your ethics and your morals. Like, you just can't. And I think we've talked about in the past some of the episodes where people didn't compromise and lost their jobs because of it. But at least you can go to bed at night, and you may not like the consequences of your decisions, but at least you can still stay true to yourself. And I think you've done that, David. I think out of anybody I've known, yeah, kudos to you on that. Did that bring that up a bit enough, Adam? Was that?
So, David, you have you're like a Venn diagram. You got this aerospace, this biomedical background, and now you're in like an enclosure specialist. So I remember when the again, I'm old as F. Let's just not forget that, right? I remember the energy crisis in the late 70s, and that resulted in the reduction of like outside air, minimizing outside air into buildings, which was a good intention, which led to sick building syndrome, right? Now, I see a similar pattern forming here. We're starting to focus on well-being and IEQ and energy footprints of buildings, and the result is to like lock down things, minimize infiltration, exfiltration, right? Like passive house being the ultimate example of that. Do we wind up with another sort of sick building consequence, do you think? Because then you have to ventilate properly, right?
Yeah. So, the old saying, build tight and ventilate right. I think it's something like that. I may have misquoted it.
Thank
you. So as we build tighter buildings, so we want our buildings as high as possible. There's no such thing as too tight of a building. Buildings do not need to breathe. I don't care if it's a doghouse or the Empire State Building, anything in between. They don't need to breathe, but people need to breathe. And if you have combustion fossil fuel appliances inside the building, they need to breathe.
Yeah.
So you need to then bring in control air from the outside, filter it, dehumidify it depending on where it's at, what time of year, etc. And then you need to send it to specific areas. So in most part, our building codes in the U.S. do that pretty well. The two bad things are our newer codes now starting more require air building tightness testing.
Right.
So the 2021 and the 2024 versions are finally stop messing around and just saying build it tight. They're actually requiring testing, particularly the 2024 version, which doesn't exist anywhere yet, but it's out there, and with time it will grow. And the ventilation parts on the commercial side, ventilation's been there for 10, 15 years now in the US. So going back to the 2009 and 2012 building codes, they started requiring mechanical ventilation. And actually even before that, on the commercial side, but it really wasn't on the residential side. And that was kind of the problem. So it's now starting in 2012, mechanical ventilation started to be required in our building codes, but it wasn't enforced very often. Or it wasn't enforced well throughout most of the country. Again, that's slowly starting to change as people, again, we get tighter buildings, so we need to ventilate. People are getting sick, bad indoor air quality. So that is improving. The problem for both commercial and residential, right? So, okay, the code says they got to ventilate. What's the crappiest, cheapest ventilation system I can put in? Which is either an all exhaust ventilation system, which will depressurize the unit. So you're just sucking air in somewhere else, right? Which a lot of our low end buildings get built. And what's the majority of our low end buildings in the US? Multifamily housing.
Yeah.
So multifamily housing in the US is the redheaded stepchild of the construction industry. It's always the cheapest bids, lowest first cost, crappiest everything, low bid everything, because as you said, it's a financial asset that as soon as 80% of the units are rented, it gets flipped to somebody else.
Yeah.
So there we're seeing a huge number of problems because of all these. We have a poor enclosure, no testing on the enclosure, cheap, bad, lowest quality ventilation systems, no verification that the ventilation system can work. And so all that becomes a nightmare. Again, that's improving with our last couple of rounds of codes, and municipalities are slowly starting to enforce these rules. It's not enforced here locally and through huge chunks in the Midwest. As many things in the U.S., it starts being enforced on the coasts and kind of gradually and moves in. So that's improving slowly but surely. Except for, again, those redheaded stepchild and cheap first cost buildings, of which a lot of them are residential, are first housings, multifamily, and starter homes. They get the crappiest of everything. And that's where most of our people are living. So we need to do a better job about providing our citizens better housing.
The Edifice complex will continue in just a moment.
Are you struggling with paperwork, spreadsheet overload, and project management? Then Blue Rhythm is the solution to help you. Streamline your commissioning and project management process. Go paperless, increase efficiency, and save money. Blue Rhythm is commissioning and project management software by practitioners for practitioners, adapting to your workflows and processes, and doing things your way. Blue Rhythm provides painless and fast onboarding by bringing your existing workflows, forms, checklists, and issues logs into Blue Rhythm for you. You can use their pre-built templates to customize your commissioning workflows. And Blue Rhythm can fully handle the transition from your current software platform. Blue Rhythm is secure, scalable, and reliable, backed by amazing support, and accessible 24/7 on any Windows, iOS, or Android device. Why are you still using paper and hard-to-control spreadsheets? Start your free Blue Rhythm account today at bluerhythm.com.
And now, back to the show.
Is the prevalence of mold? I'm seeing increasing amounts of stories, or anecdotally, about mold in residential and commercial buildings. Do you think that is a similar consequence to sick building syndrome? Like, we're tightening up things and the ventilation's not quite there, and the net result is an increase in mold?
So we're having two problems there. Number one is that, our climate is changing. So we are getting more extreme hot and cold. We get less rain, but when it rains, we get downpours.
Yeah.
And so what happens is those periods throughout the year where you can get either condensation turning to water or water getting in due to heavy rain events. And it's getting into the enclosure past the facade, and it's just hanging out more. Right. And so it's staying there. That leads to biological growth. So that's number one. Number two is that on the mechanical side, again, on the residential and multifamily, we're still oversizing systems way too much. So again, Robert knows much more about this than I do, but they short cycle. So they're too big. They run for too short time. The coils doesn't get saturated, so you don't have any moisture removal. Another problem with that is that our energy codes are requiring more efficient energy equipment, which is measured by what's called a SEER rating or ER rating. As they get higher, often that equipment has a higher sensible heat ratio. So that means the amount of moisture that gets removed from the air gets less. Yes. Yeah. So it depends on the equipment. But what happens, our manufacturers are kind of cheating to get a high SEER score, a high ER, which decreases our ability to remove moisture. So that's also hanging around, which is again why I've kind of drunk Robert's Kool-Aid of trying to push more hydronics, trying to push more water to water systems that can control that much better. Yeah, yes. And that enables better control of moisture for cheaper costs, just higher first costs. And we have an industry that doesn't know how to install those things, and owners that either don't want the first cost or because it's different aren't really interesting. But the equipment is changing. The heat pumps we have on the market are amazing. The inverter heat pumps, air to water, water to water, even air to air. Again, the materials are screaming and they're phenomenal. Well, we are not designing them right. We are not commissioning and we're not managing them and controlling them right. We have fabulous systems, but crappy controls, particularly on the residential multifamily side. So that is a big disconnect in the industry right now. And even on the commercial side, where we have super awesome control systems, they're almost never programmed right. The programming breaks down. The facility managers aren't managing the software well enough, and they don't understand the back end programming behind it. So that leads to all types of problems. So to answer your question, Robert, it's changes in the environments. We do have tighter buildings with the better materials, regardless of how well it's built. So we have less air exchanges. So when moisture gets in, it hangs around longer. And our mechanical systems aren't doing a good enough job removing that moisture because they were not designed right, or where you're selecting equipment that's not good at that particular function.
Hey, Adam, are you? Yeah, that's a great over right there, people. 2 minutes of just exactly where the state of the industry is right now. What what's happening in other parts of the world, like Dubai? I mean, you're traveling all over these other countries. What's happening there?
Yeah, every market is local, right? I'm always fascinated by the different engineering cultures in different places. So Dubai is like Florida on steroids. It's like super humid, super hot, and infiltration is a big problem there, right? Because, when you walk in a hotel and the diffusers are dripping, that's building under negative pressure, right? And that's bad maintenance normally. Now, you could design for that, but it involves VFDs and control strategies that no one really knows how to do, right? So, yeah, it is different everywhere. I personally think system buildings for sure, and the systems within them pretty likely is a cultural phenomenon, right? So when I moved to North America, I wanted radiant heating and cooling and a brick built house. Well, that made my realtor laugh so hard she nearly wet herself, right? Not happening. Didn't get it. Still don't have it. Right? So, because but in the UK, if you have hot air blown at you, you live in social housing. It's a poor person's thing. In North America, it's a rich person's thing, right?
Right.
To your point, David, my dream, which is unrealized, I want to live on a lake, like Robert, and I want to build a house, and it will have radiant heating and cooling and natural ventilation, right?
Yeah.
And it will be energy efficient. I know how to run that. I think the key to this is simplicity, not complexity, but that goes against current thinking, right? The idea is, we've got a high performance building, let's fruit more controls, more this, more that. I tell you, I give you a 2-hour talk of why a VAV system is about the worst system you could put in anywhere, right?
Yeah.
But I don't get invited to many Christmas parties at VAV box manager. So yeah, it is a cultural phenomenon, right? If you associate hot and cold air being blown on you as a luxury, that's what you look for. So in the Middle East, I need to walk in and have a thermal shock, and it will be 21 degrees whether you want it or not, right? It could be 25 and it will be perfectly comfortable. No, that will be 21, right? That's America as well, by the way, right? So in the UK, we reset indoor air temperature based on outdoor air temperature. So if it's 40 outside degrees C, sorry, I can't speak it as, you can let that indoor temperature drift up to 26 and everyone's happy because you still get that thermal shock, right? But for some reason in the US, Canada, and the Middle East, no matter how hot or cold it is outside, it will be 21 degrees in there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's a huge problem.
It's
a cultural problem that is supported by the building codes.
Yeah.
And people have been led to believe that value, represents nirvana, and it doesn't. There's nothing, as David, in our course, we talked about how, like in terms of thermal comfort, we have no specific values. We deal in ranges, and we deal in ranges within a multiple number of metrics. So it's a combination of metrics within ranges. So, the building code's having a specific value. It's not doing anybody any favors at all.
I wouldn't require indoor air temperature reset based on outside air. Imagine in the US if we said, because we're gods, so we can do this, right? We let outside air temperature reset up to 26 degrees based on outside air temperature. On aggregate, how much energy would that save? It'd be a freaking enormous number, right?
Yeah.
How many power stations would need to be calmed right down for that? That you could do that at a stroke of a pen. Well, you can't because there's 50 odd states, right? We've all got to agree on that, so it's not going to happen. But that is the potential that's sitting right there. That's the easy money, and it leads to more comfort.
Getting back to your point about culture, Adam, culturally, we are been trained to accept uncomfortable buildings. We are trained to accept crappy buildings. And I thought this was only on the residential side. It's on the commercial side too. Owners are expecting people to make shortcuts and crappy results. Yeah. And that's just like, nobody's just drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, I paid you all this money. You're going to build it right, or at least follow best practices.
Yeah.
So people have low expectations. even though that's their biggest expense in their lifetime. And so culturally, we've just been ingrained to all contractors are bad and all buildings suck. And there's a lot of bad contractors out there and a lot of sucky buildings, but they're not all bad. And it doesn't mean we have to accept that.
Correct.
So, and if people aren't going to change that, I think the codes are going to have to start changing that, forcing people to do that through regulation. And then people start to realize, hey, I can do this. And then it gets better over decades, unfortunately.
And that's the thing. How do we get codes to do that? Because, the principle is minimums become maximums. And in a free market system, the minimum requirements become the maximum. So people will never do anything more than what's required by the regulations. You'll get the peripherals, the passive houses of the world and the R2000 programs of the world and the well buildings, right? But the majority of the buildings, the majority of building permits that are issued in 1 year in North America are built to regulations. And we need to change that. We have to up the minimum benchmark that's required. And I don't know how I've struggled with that for 40 years.
The biggest untapped power known to man and God is consumer disobedience. Right? BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How's your BlackBerry? You using your BlackBerry right now? No, you're not. Right? Because the consumers decided, you know what, that now sucks and we're out. And BlackBerry in the space of a year went from top to bottom, right? If you could generate consumer disobedience to bad stuff, that's the way to do it. Problem is you need a platform, right? You need like a Joe Rogan level platform to start saying, you know what, everybody needs radiant heating and cooling and DOS, right?
Yes, yeah. You need a platform. You need time. You need cultural changes because it takes time for people to slowly to change. So it's a tough problem, Robert. I don't know if I have a solution, but I think just getting again a lot of our MEP design work is on a residential side because the commercial side is just a commodity and it's just lowest bid. And we did that a little bit and realized that there's no future. No money in future
I'm with you.
It's like punching yourself in the face. Right?
So, exactly. But on the residential side, again, you're that one starfish, which you're saving one family at a time, one household at a time, one building at a time. But then it does grow and they talk to their neighbors and cousins and yada, yada, yada. And so people can start realizing it's, all these Robert minions and we get on our own platforms and do our own YouTube videos. That slowly starts to change, but it just unfortunately will take decades.
Yeah.
We have here locally, we've done enough to where we've built a name and a brand. And getting back to Irvin, Christoph, he's doing that in Austin.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have other Robert minions all over the globe. But it's possible. It's just slow and sure in time.
Yeah. When I think about, yourself and Christoph and a few others that have, they've taken the knowledge, but you already came with a whole bunch of knowledge. You came with this massive amount of ability to understand science and engineering principles and apply it, as did Christoph, because you both sort of came through that aeroscience area, right? And, you're right that it's the time, it's the determination, persistence. And even when my own practice, like I was with you, David, like I avoided the commercial spaces because it was a commodity and it was I'm struggling with the words, but really it was an insult to my knowledge base, because you knew what was right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you knew what kind of spaces you could engineer and build. And when people wanted to do less than that, it was like really distasteful. So we did, much like yourself, we did residential work, but it was people building their retirement homes. This was their last home. And most of my clients were actually like yourself. We were the consultants to the consultants. These were, like I said, and I've said this before, Adam, in the show, like 91% of my clients were other engineers, that were building their retirement home. They had come across my radar screen for whatever reason. but wanted to retain us because we could help them build the house that they always wanted their whole life. And then the other, 6% or so were actually physicians. They were medical practitioners. They were surgeons. They were ophthalmologists, from that. And then the other 2% were just really well-researched individuals. Like I remember one of the guys that we had, he was a hairdresser. That was his profession, but he was a business guy. He had like 20-some stores at the time. And the stores were in buildings that he owned. So this guy his profession was hairdressing, but his life was business. And they were building themselves, a family home that they were going to live in for the rest of their life. And so they just wanted all of the things that promoted health, happiness, these things that happen inside spaces. And part of that was resiliency, simplicity, and again, so for those listening, and, David, you brought it up in terms of control systems. These were multi-million-dollar houses being built by very wealthy people that could have easily bought the sophisticated controls. But do you know that in those houses, we used the Danfoss thermostatic radiator valves with the remote controls? They had no power requirements. They were fully modulating. They picked up the radiant energy as well as the convective energy. You set them. If you wanted more heat, you turned it to the left. If you want less, you turned it to the right. The manual was 2 pages. Most of it was pictures. Right?
That's my kind of system, mate.
And spring-loaded bypass valves. Springs don't break, right? So we use springs, in our bypass valves. And we didn't have these wall-to-wall circulators. We had one circulator on the system. The pressure differential was controlled by spring-loaded devices. The room spaces were controlled by, refrigerant and springs. It's just elegance, the simplicity of elegance. And yet they could have easily afforded the most zippiest program. But for the practitioners in the world, I don't know but I've been up the technology ladder. It doesn't look pretty. It becomes parasitic on your life. Those calls that come in about control systems is just a nightmare for me. And so I came back down the ladder and I said, that's it. I'm done. Simple. Building fixes everything.
On the residential side, so it depends on your client, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. Everybody loves the cool new phone app that controls the ventilation system and lights, and they use it every day for a week, and then they forget it's there.
Yeah.
And they never.
Yep.
So that is what we were doing. So we've made the same mistake. We do a lot of our early interviews with a lot of our clients, and they have a questionnaire. We kind of say, how do you want your stuff controlled? And we sit down, we have conversations, and very quickly learn, okay, where are they true geeks and they love their technology, they want to play with it every time, and are they wearing a Garmin watch, and are they tracking their heart rate as they talk to you? All right, okay, those are the people that you can put in sophisticated control systems. They will use it daily. Yeah. Everybody else, simplify.
Yeah.
So don't forget it. Simplicity is the most underrated engineering concept in our business. Man to man and God, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Did you think about
this is one of my, I got this from one of your shows. I don't know if you can read that.
No, it's not coming.
No, can you read it out?
Yeah, read it out to us.
This is Roland Kless. He was on your show.
Oh yeah.
Just years ago now.
Yeah.
Engineers are very good at working on improving efficiency of systems that should never be used in the first place.
Yes, so 100%.
I got this from your show. He said on your show years ago, and I loved it so much I printed it out and I put it on the wall to kind of remind me.
That is so true, man. That is so true.
Don't do that.
Engineers are like weightlifters. They're all performing for each other.
Yeah.
I'm cleverer. No, I'm clever.
Well, and that's been one of my, my soapboxes on LinkedIn and in the ASHRAE programs that we've been doing since Bill McQuaid's presidency on IEQ, was getting people to understand that the indoor environment does not start with the mechanicals. It starts first with the architecture, then the enclosure, then the interior systems. And the mechanicals is like, the cleanup crew on a John Wick movie. Like they're just there to fix all the screw ups of the first three horses, and that's what it's all about. And as soon as if you can get your head around that, and you can use the geometry, the colors, the form factors of the architecture, and then you design the enclosure, which you guys have been talking about, which is totally all accurate. And then you solve like 80% of the problems. And then when you can incorporate the interior systems, and I'm not talking about, furniture and stuff. We're talking about shading, and if it's an office building, how partitions can influence airflow and exposure to sunlight, all these types of things. When you get your head around that, those are all the passive solutions. You don't need to give them electricity and gas and fuel. Like, there's no maintenance. They're like the pet rocks of architecture, right? You can design them well, and then you forget about them. And then any of the tweaks that you need to make into that space, that's what the electrical and the mechanical systems are for. But it doesn't start with the mechanicals. It never starts with the mechanicals.
David, here's a 64
Off my soapbox
question. $64,000 question, no phone a friend, no lifeline, right? You've got to build your dream house. It's about 2,000 to 3,000 square foot. What systems are you putting in there?
So let's say here it's climate zone matters. So let's say we're in climate zone 5 here, kind of Nebraska, Chicago.
Winters, summers, the whole thing, right?
Yeah, winters, summers, all 4 seasons. The shell. So I'm going to have exterior insulation, continuous exterior insulation. That solves so many problems.
Yep, totally.
Get that dew point out on the wall. Get rid of those thermal bridges. That is like the one thing that if I could get architects to do anything, put continuous insulation in all buildings, that solves so many downstream problems. Mm-hmm. So we have an excellent shell that's airtight, a lot of insulation on the exterior, on the walls, a lot of insulation on the roof, and the slab, believe it or not, is hugely important. Fully insulates the slab. We'll probably have a basement because we're in kind of tornado land. Yeah. Yes to all that. I'm going to have a radiance heating and cooling system. So it will be a concrete slab where I can. It'd be radiance because that mass heating and cooling is so much better and easier to control. Maintains thermal set point. I'm going to have some vertical radiant panels for cooling, mostly on the main or second floor, depends on how many stories and where I run out of money. I'm going to have some glazings on the north side, some high narrow glazings on the south side to get in some daling and some thermal heating, and limited glazings on the west side so we don't bake. It's going to have the natural ventilation here. It's a great idea. I just had so many problems with it, Roberts. So where I'm at, we get a lot of smog. All your Canadian fires, Robert, all that stuff comes down here. It gives us no good. So the indoor environmental quality, again, we have like rain, we got humidity. So I've just seen natural ventilation. If you're in the mountains, you're living where Robert lives, awesome. Natural ventilation all day long. If you're in places that has bad indoor air qualities, fires, high pollen in the springs and the falls, that just becomes so much more of a challenge. So it's going to have a really good ventilation system. And then now that all my money is spent, I'm going to have just basically the simplest finishes and very basic go from there, which is what the opposites of what everybody thinks. They start with the finishes. Go out. I start at the outs and I come in.
Keep the VOCs down as well that way. I like that. That's good, right? So how do we communicate that as a luxury good to the market?
That's a tough one because it's complicated, right? So you can't tell a complicated story. You have to tell a simple story. Again, tweet Tony Roberts, comfort. And durability. Big durability is a big day this year. So Nebraska, the state of Nebraska lost 9 insurance providers in the last 2 years because we've been the number 1 state in insurance claims. We've had a gazillion hailstorms come across here our climate or weather is changing. So we had like a record number of hail claims. All the insurance companies are leaving Dodge because they don't want to pay out anymore. So there's very few insurance companies left. Their premiums have skyrocketed. So durability is becoming something our clients are asking about because of that. So again, and that's where starting outside and you work way in, you're doing that durability and resilience to our extreme weather, which is happening more and more. And it's actually going to then less maintenance, longer duration. Because like Robert, a lot of our clients this is their, retirement. They're going to bury me in this house type of mentality. Yeah. So it's a lot of single story, ADA accessible, walk-in showers, all those type of things, to where they want something that they can leave to the next generation to have. And they're going to be there as long as they can.
I'm staring into my crystal ball here, and I get this image of Nebraska. Warren Buffett, the insurance guru of the whole wide world. We just got to recruit Warren to tell people how they should build houses, because he knows what the claims are all about. He's in your backyard, isn't he? He's in Omaha, isn't he?
Actually, he lives like a mile and a half from me. He's lived in the same house for like 30 years, or like 60 years. And it was he recently did like major upgrades, but he didn't upgrade for years. He had like one of the same old crappy house. Guy doesn't spend money.
No.
And so for years, he had one of the worst houses on the block. And then finally he made he made massive upgrades, right? So, guy was traveling all the time, chasing the buck and chasing deals. And so he was kind of famous for being a bit of a penny pincher and not making upgrades. And then recently he's made all kinds of upgrades, but a lot of it's security related, unfortunately. But we do need to recruit him, but he fought it tooth and nail for as long as he could.
You know how that went, right? His wife said, "Warren, either we're upgrading this now."
Exactly.
Well, if we could recruit Warren, because he carries a big stick everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? I always remember reading a story about him before he bought his corporate jet company. He would fly economy.
Yeah.
Like he would be in the back of the bus with everybody else. Because He could have bought the jet.
He pinched every penny dry.
Yeah.
I always say
the reason why, which is probably the reason why he's so wealthy, and he's made so many other people wealthy.
The real power and wealth are the people you'd have no idea exist, right? That's the people you got to find, like the Peter Tills of this world, who most people don't know who he is. He's probably the scariest guy in the world right now.
But let's bring it back down to because Adam, you asked a great question, and David provided an answer. And in many ways, what David described is from an economic point of view. If you're building your last house, and it has to be resilient, and you want to be in that space, that whole experience is a lot different than living in a crappy house that, in case of Warren, maybe he was away because he didn't want to be home.
The difference is when you're building that final, call it the terminal residence, right? The requirements change.
Right?
I'm not bringing out my kids. I'm not out the house all day working. I'm in the house. I want to enjoy it. I want to be comfortable. I want to hand it over. It has to last. That is a different set of requirements to attract house in the suburbs, right?
Yeah.
I was sorry, go on.
Yeah, there's where we live. There's a place on just down the street that they take down the old house and they put up a new one. And this house was probably, I think it sold for something like 2.6 million or something like that. And I was talking to the neighbor who happened to be a plumber, actually, or no, HVAC contractor who did really, really well for himself. And they're buddies, right? So the guy that bought the big brand new house was talking to my HVAC buddy guy, and he was saying, Robert, they can't even stay in the living room. It's so hot in the summertime, they can't even use it, And when you take a look at this building, it's architecturally, it's got some really nice features to it. But if you can't occupy it, what's the point?
Mm.
You know, and how many buildings exist like that? Like even on LinkedIn, there was somebody threw up a picture. I think it was like Lloyd Alter, who was also, an alumni of the show, and this full glass facade building. And, it doesn't, if you have the training, you can see that. And right away you see it's a rogue zone. It's going to be a problem all year round. Right. And some people get up there and they start defending the architect and the architecture in their own naive little way. I guess, well, what's wrong with it? It looks fine. It looks beautiful. The building was completely out of place. It's stuck in this, old, like 18 to early 1900s residential area. And then there's this brand new, I don't know. I don't even know what the words to use.
This is how bad it is.
Yeah.
Well, project shall be nameless in Ottawa. It was a high-end residential tower. And I was arguing for thermal breaks between the balcony and the lounge. And it came down to this saying at the end from developer, warm feet are extra. We can't afford it. This is the green high-end developer said that to me. I want to kill myself.
Yeah, like that's again, like for those listening, like if you're not familiar with it, like the codes do not represent indoor environmental quality, and it's all about limiting the probability that someone's going to get ill. And so you can be compliant with like represent whatever the thermostat is reading is a proxy for the code, right? So if it says 72 or 22 degrees C, you're fine. Like the courts are going to look at it and go, okay, well the witness is the thermostat, and according to the building code says 22. The thermostat says 22. We're done.
Yep.
Right. In the meantime, people are freezing their ass off. They're getting sick. It's just. Yeah, like it's anyways, we're going and we have a circular conversation going here.
Listen, we're coming up on time here. So we normally end with a quick fire question from each of us. So I'll start. Building envelope commissioning. It's I'm a little bit of a fan of it. How do we make it more acceptable, more people? How do we generate people to ask for it?
I think again, it's selling it as risk management.
Right.
So whether or not that's the owner's risk, whether or not that's the owner's rep, general contractor, or there's some third party certificates that you're chasing, it's risk management.
Yeah.
So because we've had the statistics are all out there, you gave them earlier of how many just poor systems. When we do fenestration testing is one of the services we provide. I'm shocked, storefronts fail when you do that chamber test, 1105. They fail at about like a 40% rate.
Wow.
They fail quite commonly. And then storefronts or curtain walls, they often pass them a test, but sometimes they fail the air test. They have other issues around the integration of the storefronts, or not the storefront, the integration of the curtain walls with the structural elements. So just having them be aware of how common failure is, and by doing this commissioning, it's the risk management. And another, even just do a design review. There is just so many problems we can find just by giving out the blueprints, breaking out a blue, red, and green pen, and going around drawing our control layers, seeing where they're there and where they're not. So many problems that even just a third-party design review can solve. And that's cheap, really, in the big picture. So risk management and saving headaches.
I agree with that, 100%.
So, David, let's just say, you're like 5 years in the future, and you and Christoph meet somewhere by some chance, somewhere, and you're talking about your businesses, and you're talking about your clients, and you're talking about, how you've changed the way people look at buildings. What are the top 3 things that you two talk about in that discussion?
Number one, I hope I do as well as Christoph is doing. He's killing it. So that's number one. Number 2 would be, are people just comfortable? Are people happy in their residence? They want to be there, right? Is it a pleasant experience? Very simple, very basic. But again, as we talked earlier, there are certain rooms of their own house that people don't want to be in during the summer or winter because it's too drafty or too much sunlight, whatever the case may be. So financially, I guess I can finish or successful, or can I catch up to Christoph? Number two, are people pleasant or happy in their home? And number three, I do think the indoor environmental standards needs to improve. Just trying to get people to do passive radon systems in our neck of the woods is pulling teeth, right? Because we are in a high radon area, and things like that. Indoor, getting our nets all over the house so people can measure their COs and stuff like that. So indoor environmental quality, are people happy and pleasant? Do they enjoy those spaces? And do we make enough money to retire someday?
The dream.
The dream, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there's, again, like for those listening, like if you're in school, like just tons, David, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. That's what we were looking for. People need to hear your story. And then, if there's the parents and you've got kids in school today, just encourage them to just keep going. And then, the challenges are going to come up, but you'll get through them, and don't stop, don't give up, just keep pursuing. And if you've got a brain that can deal with engineering, you can deal with a lot of stuff. You're not academically challenged when it comes to that. And as a lot of our guests have demonstrated over and over and over again, Adam, is that you are so fluid in choices that you make. You can go anywhere in the world and apply the knowledge because it's physics, it's chemistry, 100%. It's all, and I think that's a huge message that we get from our guests. And David, it's been awesome having you on. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Look, you are
honored to be here.
You're that rare thing. You're an academic practitioner, and I tell you, the future belongs to practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
The Edifice Complex will continue in just a moment.
Are you passionate about the built environment? Do you want to learn from the industry's most inspiring, intelligent, and accomplished professionals? Then the companion to this podcast, Wisdom of the Property Crowd, is just the book for you. From Edifice Complex podcast interviews, this book distills the critical thinking, insight, and ideas of some of the property industry's most accomplished and respected practitioners. Each chapter is a synopsis of an hour-plus interview, capturing the takeaways and insights, including diagrams and images, to help explain concepts and ideas. There's also a brief bio about the interviewee and a QR code linked to the podcast episode for those that want to explore further. These are the mentors you wish you had in college. Wisdom of the Property Crowd by Adam Muggleton. Available on Amazon worldwide.
And now, back to the show.
Thanks again, David. I love those stories, Adam. Like, I love those stories where, people, like you follow your passion and then the roadblocks show up. Yeah. And life is like that. Like that's just the way life is. And some things, what is the saying? Some days you're the windshield and some days you're the bug, or some days you're the statue and some days you're the pigeon, right? Yeah. And David, what I like about what his determination and his drive and his passion, and then facing these challenges to be able to step back and say, okay, well, these are my circumstances right now. I'm going to embrace them. I may not like them, but I'm going to embrace them. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to sort of just reset my goals and my priorities. And when there's a window of opportunity, I'm going to take it and I'm going to restart my life. And now look what he's doing. And, I think his business now is like in sort of the 10-year range, so he's past that sort of fourth year.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a going concern. And if you look at the level of work, the scientific level of work, because of his abilities, right? Like doing computational fluid dynamics, that's not for everybody. Like you have to have a certain,
It's
know,
not
but
for
then,
me.
right? You know, but and then so not only being able to sit in front of a computer and create models, but to also then go out into the field and set up the instrumentations and do a test assembly, and then to be able to analyze those results and then be able to point out to, in this case, a general contractor or the architect where the flaws exist. That ability to go back and forth between, you know, what's in your mind and what's in the field and solve all those problems, that's a big individual. Like I love that. I just think that's just awesome.
You know what? That was a great lesson. Like his career is a great lesson in like how to overcome the sunk cost fallacy, right? So he had a sunk cost of a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD, and like 10 years plus of working to an ambition that evaporated in front of his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's only two ways you react to that. You crush, you cry and go home, or you just go, okay, I got to pivot here, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, despite doing, just imagine his mum and dad saying, son, you got to go to university, get a good job. He did all that and it still didn't work out, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not a complete sunk cost because he's pivoted using that academic background into a new field, but it is a new field. And when you enter a new field, you start at level 0, right?
Well, isn't it interesting? By coincidence, before the show got started, you were talking about your job as a golfer. You know, go for this, go for that, and then David brings it up. You know, and
he was a golfer. Look, so he was mature enough to understand where he sat on the food chain, which was a bit of a superpower in the end, right?
Well, it is, and well, again, there's so many lessons that came out of this discussion that we had, and that is that, you know, for those that are listening and you're, you know, maybe you have a really high, there's value in having confidence and having a good perception of yourself and your abilities. There's a value to that.
Yeah.
But if you wear that on your sleeve, you're in for a big shock when life shows up in your face. You can take all your arrogance and your narcissism and your look at me and look at my grades and look at all these great things. Yeah, life doesn't care.
It's interesting. But I think he sort of brought to light, which you and I know, but a lot of people don't, is, right, you get a teaching job because you've got a PhD. Unless you start writing papers that get published and get research funding, you're out of a job. It's freaking brutal, actually, right? This is why tenure is so sought after, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, PhD, get hired everywhere, earn money. No, it doesn't work like that. Those academic qualifications are just a ticket to get in the disco. You still got to dance.
Totally. Yeah. And that's what I like about David. And the other thing, you know, a lot of the people that we've had on the show, you know, they're very grounded. Life has grounded them. They came out, you know, being told that they were the smartest and the best, and, you know, and they came out with that shiny badge on their chest.
And reality went, don't care.
Don't care.
Don't care about that.
It's like they show up for boot camp, you know, and they got all all of their qualifications, and then the drill sergeant starts ripping shit off their shirt. Yeah, that star doesn't matter. That badge doesn't matter. Oh, and you did this, too bad. Poof, gone.
Yeah, exactly.
You are in front of me. You're brand new, and you are naked, and you're going to be cold, suffering, and that's just the way life is. So get over it.
I liked. He had some good messaging. Actually, he came out with some classics like. The one I like was Robert's Minions. You've given birth to all these other consultants and specialists, right? I mean, I met you literally going to one of your classes for
that's right.
I expected to sleep all the way through it, and you started speaking about valve authority. What's going on? Someone knows this, you know. And it's the same thing for him, right? So you've got more influence than you realize. Actually, teaching is being the ultimate influencer, right? If you're a good teacher, I think. Yeah. Because
it's been for me, what the joy for me is to see people like David and Christoph and these, you know, the other people. Hema Murdy, Dr. Murdy, she just came out of nowhere because talk about an adjacent thinker.
Yeah.
Like that woman, you know, she's traveling on this journey in her field of, again, another aeroscientist, right? Like aerospace scientist, like Christoph was, David is, Hema was. But But she's got tentacles. Like her brain has tentacles in so many places, and somehow one of her tentacles ended up on my radar screen. And she took my boot class, just like David did and Christoph did. And man, again, it goes back to who was the Vienna economist, Peter Drucker.
Oh, Peter, yeah.
Yeah, right. And he would talk about, every few years he would learn something new. So before he passed away, like in his autobiography, it was a biography. They talks about when Peter passed away, like, yeah, okay, he was an economist, but because he had adjacent interests, by the time he died, that man was a walking library, just like Hema is and Christoph is and David is. Like these people are they have so much willingness to explore other areas adjacent to their own, which is what, one of the reasons why you started this show.
Yeah, exactly.
The adjacent possibilities, right?
You think about it, there's two types of PhD, those that stay in their silo and have these blinkers on.
Yeah.
Real successful people are the ones that think adjacently, they think in systems, they look at the overlaps, they look at the connections. Yeah. In our business, those are the people that rise to the top, right?
Yeah.
David's one of them. Yeah. Right? Hema's one of them, right?
Yeah. Marcel's another one.
Yeah, exactly. Was he an anthropologist or something?
Yeah, like I met Marcel in Montreal. Really, we should get all these people together for a party at some point.
Actually, we should have an alumni get together.
Yeah, right. And just because when I think about like Marcel, like his range and how he's brought it all together, like it's like he understands the pieces of the puzzles and he puts them all together, just like everybody else that we've mentioned here today. Like that ability is huge. Or you can just be one of the pieces of the puzzle. Yeah. But these people understand all the pieces and put them together and can create the form, right?
Didn't they used to call this in the 80s lateral thinking is what we're talking about here, where you can laterally as well as up and down?
Yeah.
It's a superpower, actually. I'm shocked at how few people can do that. You just assume people can, but most people can't.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm an engineer. I do not leave this cubicle. I have a straw in here.
Well, and that's like Marwa, that was Marwa's interview was, that woman, she just inspires me.
Oh no, she's a beast. I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah. She has again, all of these people have great stories about perseverance and your passion and following what you want to do. And, and not ignoring the advice of others, because in case of Marwa, like her dad wanted her to become a different type of an engineer, or a scientist. But she just said, no, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And I'll find a way to do it. And every one of them have,
Yeah, it's interesting. But the difference, what I want to end on and say, people take away is, you can have all the academic qualifications you like, but you need to become a practitioner and make a difference to the business and the world you are operating in.
Yeah, totally.
Being in a vacuum in your cubicle doing equations does no one any good unless that is applied to the real world, right?
Yeah.
And David is a great example of that, right? He starts off in a super academic space and he becomes a practitioner. And that academic brain plus the practitioner, that's the superpower.
Yeah, totally. And, Bill Bonfils like that. Like we've had Bill on the show a couple of times and, like he is an academic, but / practitioner, because he's had so much experience in the field. So when he stands up in front of a crowd and he talks about his story and what he knows and he shares what he's learned and he teaches, it's from a completely a place of, I've been there. I've been in the trenches. I know what it's like to face deadlines, the sciences, the economics, the politics, all of the social issues that go along with being in that kind of a role. He's been there, and that's huge.
100%. We need basically the industry needs more people like David. Really.
Yeah,
it really does.
Oh, without a doubt, hands down. Yeah.
All right, mate. Let's wrap her up there. I'll see you on the next one.
All right, Adam. Cheers, man.
Take care. Bye.
You've been listening to the Edifice Complex podcast with Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean. See you next time.